A minute ago, the ground beneath Pozzuoli tore, another tremor. Too weak to be felt or to even reach the news. An AI, monitoring vibrations, counted it as the 54,000th. 54,000 earthquakes in 3 years, 4 times more than scientists knew about. And when AI mapped them, it found 2 huge fault lines running directly beneath this city's apartment blocks, schools, and churches. Long enough to tear Pozzuoli apart with a force its buildings could never withstand. The Volcano Observatory has long monitored Campi Flegrei. Seismometers are buried in boreholes, and GPS stations track every movement of the ground. Gas sensors monitor sulfur and CO2 around the clock. If there's any volcano on Earth that should hold no secrets, it's certainly this one. But the instruments were only capturing a fraction of what was really happening. In September 2025, a Stanford team fed raw seismic data from Campi Flegrei, collected over 3 years, into an AI model originally built to find earthquakes in California. It processed every tremor, every micro-earthquake, and every signal in the background noise that analysts had dismissed as insignificant. The official catalog listed 12,000 tremors. AI found 54,000. For every earthquake that made it into the official records, there were 3 more. Under cafes, playgrounds, and beds where people sleep at night, thousands of tiny fractures, each a hairline crack in the rock sustaining this city. No one felt them or counted them, but together they drew a map of something no one had seen before. That number was jarring, but what the AI map showed changed everything. When the researchers plotted the 54,000 tremors, a ring appeared.
Whenever there's news about volcanoes or earthquakes globally, you'll hear it here first. Feel free to stick around with a subscription.
Sharp, clear, unmistakable. The ancient caldera rim, visible via thousands of fractures, just 2 to 3 kilometers below the surface. Not deep within the earth, but right under the foundations. And running through this ring, converging directly beneath the city of Pozzuoli, were 2 long fault lines that had been completely invisible until now. The length of a fault determines the strength of the earthquake. Short faults cause small tremors. Long ones can trigger devastating quakes. Bill Ellsworth, co-director of Stanford's Center for Induced Seismicity, examined the data and stated clearly, "These long faults indicate a magnitude 5 earthquake cannot be ruled out." A magnitude 5 earthquake in Tokyo or San Francisco would rattle dishes and maybe crack some plaster. Those cities are built for such conditions. Pozzuoli isn't. Its buildings, some decades old, were conceived for risks from distant faults hundreds of kilometers off, not for a volcano directly beneath them. A magnitude 5 earthquake 2 kilometers deep would hit like a bomb detonating under the street. Walls wouldn't just crack, they would burst. Balconies that have hung over narrow alleys for 50 years would break off and fall. Stairwells would twist. In the older blocks by the water, entire floors could collapse. Residents would have seconds, not minutes. Pozzuoli knows this kind of chaos. On March 2nd, 1970, after weeks of unexplained ground uplift, authorities ordered the evacuation of Rione Terra, the oldest district. Army trucks rolled into the alleys, officials went door to door. In 2 days, more than 500 families were pulled from the buildings that were their world, loaded onto trucks, and driven to hospitals and hotels along the coast. The district became a ghost town in 48 hours. No one was allowed back. The municipality seized all buildings. The boarded-up windows and doors of Rione Terra remain empty, over half a century later. Years later, graffiti appeared on a wall. "Our overlords want to tear down Rione Terra to enjoy this paradise." That was before anyone knew about these fault lines. But they were only half of what the scientists found. Buried within the same seismic data, another team discovered a unique signal that had never before been recorded at Campi Flegrei. While the Stanford AI was counting earthquakes, a team from the GFZ Helmholtz Center in Potsdam, Germany, was doing something else. They weren't just looking at the locations of the quakes. Instead, they focused on their acoustic signatures. Most earthquakes at Campi Flegrei are sharp. A pop, rock fracture under pressure, over in a fraction of a second. But amid thousands of ordinary tremors, the German team found something completely different. Slow, deep pulses lasting 60 to 90 seconds. Not the breaking of rock, but a hum, a deep, rhythmic vibration, as if something huge were breathing beneath the city. Scientists call them very long period or VLP signals. These signals also manifest at other volcanoes, typically when gas or magma forces its way through a fissure in the Earth's crust, causing the rock to vibrate like air blown across a bottle's mouth, a clear indication of subterranean fluid movement. No one had ever detected a VLP signal at Campi Flegrei. Until now, the team found more than a dozen of them, dating back to 2018. When they traced the source, it was located 3.6 kilometers deep, positioned right between the magma inflation center below and the Solfatara crater above. The Solfatara, that steaming pit right in the middle of Pozzuoli, where the ground is too hot to stand on, and the air just burns your throat. The very long period signals unveiled a direct connection, specifically a fissure filled with superheated gas and liquid, which extends directly from the magma source all the way to the surface. It's not a sealed chamber with layers of rock in between. A pipeline, open and resonating. The AI system showed us where the ground was breaking. The VLP signals showed us what was moving through the breaks. Pressurized volcanic gas is rising through a fissure system that extends from the deep reservoir to the streets above. The volcano hadn't just lifted the ground, it had built itself a highway to the surface, and no one heard it until the data was finally analyzed. On June 30th, 2025, at exactly 8:08 in the morning, the most powerful earthquake ever recorded struck Campi Flegrei. Magnitude 4.6. The tremor lasted only seconds, but it was enough. All over Pozzuoli, plaster fell from ceilings and cracks reappeared in freshly patched walls. At Punta Penata, on the Gulf's western edge, a cliff section broke off and plunged into the sea. It was the fifth quake over magnitude 4 that year alone. Throughout 2024 and 2025, the observatory recorded over 1,000 earthquakes monthly, with both their number and intensity escalating annually. The ground keeps rising. Since 2005, the center of Pozzuoli has lifted 1.4 meters, 20 millimeters in the last month alone. The relationship between uplift and quakes isn't gradual. It's exponential. The more the ground elevates, the more rapidly the fault lines fracture, and these fracturing faults remained imperceptible until the AI filtered out all the interference. Yet the official alert level for Campi Flegrei remains at yellow, the second lowest level on a 4-level scale. The civil protection reports consistently repeat, the current unrest remains within the expected range. No immediate escalation is justified. The emergency plan, which protocol says should reflect the latest science, remained unchanged through the spring and summer of 2025, even after the record-breaking quake, even after the faults mapped. 5 earthquakes over magnitude 4 in 1 year. 54,000 fractures in 3 years, a pipeline of volcanic gas from the magma to the surface. And officially, this is still within expected parameters. After the Stanford study, INGV did something that showed just how seriously they took it. They didn't submit it for review. They installed the artificial intelligence, operational, immediately. Every tremor under Campi Flegrei, no matter how small, is now catalogued instantly. Greg Baroza, one of the Stanford researchers, summed it up. Seismicity can change at any time. That's probably the study's most important point. He's right. Everything points one way. Uplifts accelerating, quakes grow stronger. The faults are more extensive than anyone ever thought. Below, a resonance fracture channels volcanic gas from magma to the surface. Rio Nettuno has sat empty on its headland above the harbor since 1970. Pastel walls, bleached by sun and salt for 56 years. The cathedral restored. Roman ruins beneath it, accessible to tourists. The city aims to transform it into a cultural heritage site. Yet, the families, who were transported by army trucks that march, predominantly still reside in the apartment blocks of Toiano, the very suburb where they were relocated over half a century ago. They were never able to return. From their supposedly temporary dwellings, they closely monitor news about the quakes. This is unlike any other supervolcano in the world, not Yellowstone, Toba, or Taupo. 500,000 people on a fragile lid, with AI monitoring every single fracture in real time, and an evacuation plan that hasn't seen an update since those faults were first discovered. The ground under Pozzuoli rose again this morning. The faults are growing, the gas continues to rise. For the first time, we can see what's happening down there. The question is anyone here ready for what's next?